There is a Thai restaurant, very yummy Thai restaurant, near where I live. And a while back, I was getting some takeout. And as I was getting my takeout, I turned around and there was a young teenager, I don't know, maybe 15-ish, something like that. And he turned around, he was wearing a black t-shirt, and on the back of his t-shirt were 3 words in white lettering. They were fear of God. Yeah, I thought, how sad. How sad. I don't know about you, but I spent years unlearning a scary, out there God that I was a little afraid of, give or take my behavior. A scary God or religion, or more accurately, a religiosity that is intended to scare people into submission, that, my friends, isn't God. That isn't God. That is the farthest thing from spirit or universal love. That scary God idea is using a man-made, dangerous concept of God in order to control people. And it was, and sadly still is in many places, used as a political weapon. Now, our understanding of God or spirit, please use whatever word works for you. Here in New Thought, that is the farthest thing, that scary, manipulative God. That's not the God we understand. The God of our understanding here in New Thought is, in fact, the opposite, the exact opposite of that. In approximately 1892, Emma Curtis Hopkins, considered to be the teacher of teachers in our New Thought movement, wrote, "Our body is every bit quickened by life, by intelligence, and is filled with God's substance. We are the temple of God, filled and shining with God." We are the temple of God, filled and shining with God. This idea that we are filled with God substance, my friends, this idea is an ancient one. Now, we have a lot of new folks joining us these days. Again, welcome to all of you here and those of you joining us online. And in order for the rest of my talk to make sense, for those of you who are new or newish, I just need to make it very, very clear that our spiritual teaching in New Thought does not subscribe to a moody man-god puppeteer in the sky pulling the strings in our favor or not. Every human being has been given free will, and so we must work within that infrastructure. Nor do we believe in magical thinking, that we can somehow affirm something away without doing the work, or somehow control the choices of others by, willing it so. That would be metaphysical malpractice. That is not who we are. Rather, our sacred work is to stay aligned with the highest spiritual truth in every situation, which ultimately brings us more peace within ourselves and more peace on the planet. So New Thought is based in ancient wisdom, in particular Hinduism, mystical Christianity, which is the closest to the original teachings of the man Jesus of Nazareth, and Buddhism. In the ancient Hindu text, the Rig Veda, written approximately 1,000 to 1,500 years before Jesus walked the earth, it is written, "The human body is the temple of God. One who kindles the light of awareness within realizes true light." In other words, God lives within us, not to be feared. In the 13th century, the great mystic Meister Eckhart wrote, "The seed of God is within us." And in the 21st century, the great Zen Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh said, "At any moment you have a choice that either leads you closer to your spirit or further from it." And so understanding that as opposed to fearing God like that sweet teenager is being raised to believe, and I think many of us here might have been, and those online. We here in New Thought actually understand that we are meant to work with the divine, that this unconditional love that is within us, within each other, and all around us is working on our behalf. Nothing to fear, rather everything to celebrate. That this is a benevolent, loving universe that always, always, always has our back, even when it doesn't feel like it. The highest truth has always been that we are in holy and sacred relationship with Spirit, and that the divine is always co-creating with us. And loves, when you look at the trajectory of your life, you will see God or Spirit has always been supporting you, especially through the hardest and most difficult times. Spirit is in it with us for the long haul, from beginning to the next life and the next and the next and the next. Here's what I mean by that. So, when I was 14 years old, I had a really, really important conversation with my mom, Mama Peggy. Hi, Mom. My mother is a retired professor of Asian studies. Her specialty is Chinese history and culture. Just that, you know. She also taught humanities and world religions. And so while I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, I was surrounded by multicultural ideas and books that were filled with all kinds of information about cultures that were different from my own, and Asian art, Buddhas, and Hindu gods around the house. It was quite an adventure growing up in my house with my mom and my family. And this particular day, I was sitting on the couch, and my mother was sharing with me, because I asked her, all of the incredible gifts that ancient China, in its wisdom and grace and beauty, had given to the world, and it's extraordinary. In that conversation, though, she also mentioned that she was very sad. Now, this is 40 plus years ago, mind you. She was very sad about what was happening at the time because of the one-child policy. She went on to explain to me that years before that, in 1975, China instilled a one-child policy. It's a horrific, draconian policy that was put in place to try to get the population under control. It's had huge, devastating ramifications, and the trauma will last for centuries, I'm certain. As a result, reasons I'm not going to go into here, but there are all kinds of reasons that culturally China has a preference for sons. Have you heard this? It's a cultural thing. And my mom went on to explain to me the heartbreak of so many families that perhaps they had an unplanned pregnancy, maybe, and they were only allowed to have one child. And because of this preferred idea of having sons, she explained to me that thousands, not hundreds, but thousands of orphanages all over China were filled with little girls, perfectly healthy, who were institutionalized simply because they were born female. I can't even imagine, I have to say this, my heart goes to the families who had to make those heartbreaking decisions, because if they had not relinquished their child, they could have lost, and many did, their homes, their jobs, their livelihood. There were no social programs. They were left on the street, them, their parents, their grandparents. A devastating situation. It went from 1972 to 2016. Thankfully, it has now stopped. At 14 years old, though, when my mother explained that to me, this one-child policy, for some reason, two things happened instantaneously. When she shared with me that that was the situation, that all these little girls were in China, in orphanages, my heart hurt. I remember my heart hurt. And right on the tail end of that, I had an absolute knowing, capital K, knowing that someday I would be the mother to one of China's daughters. And I remember saying that, I blurted it out, and I said it to my mom, and we were there in the living room, and she so kindly said to me, "Oh, my dear love, wouldn't that be incredible? But there's no way." I mean, at that time, China was just establishing a relationship with the United States, and the whole idea of saving face and shame and the concept of that in the Asian world, all of that. My mom said to me, "Sweetheart, that would take a miracle." But in that moment, I knew. I don't know how I knew. I knew. And I went, okay. And I went on with my day, knowing someday that miracle would happen. Fast forward 10 years, a whole decade. I'm 24 years old. And China announces that it's opening its doors to international adoption. The miracle happened. I remember calling my mom from wherever in the United States I was. Maybe I wasn't even in the United States at that time. Anyway, and we both squealed with delight. We squealed with delight. And I said to her, "Someday, Mom, someday, that's how I will add to my family, someday." I wasn't remotely ready at that time. I was in my early 20s, doing my early 20s thing. But I knew. I let it go. I went on with my life. A decade and several years later, I'm married. We have 3 beautiful daughters. And the time comes. My husband and I decide we are going to have an even 4. We're going to complete our family. We finished all of our paperwork. We turned it into the adoption agency. I was so excited. This was a dream that had been seeded at the age of 14. It was now finally coming to fruition. I said to the woman on the phone who worked at the adoption agency, "This is so great. Tell me when it's going to happen." She explained that they went in 3-month increments where they would match Chinese daughters with adoptive families. It happened every 3 months. And she said, you'll be in the next batch in 3 months, and then you'll travel 6 to 8 weeks. So I got all the books. I read everything there was to read about raising a daughter from China, everything I could find. 3 months went by. I called the adoption agency. Back then, we had these kinds of phones. This is 20 years ago, my friends. I called the adoption agency, and she says to me, "I'm so sorry. There's been a slowdown. You weren't in this batch. We don't really know what's going on. You'll have to check back with us in another 3 months." And I thought, okay. So I was going to a New Thought church in Los Angeles where I lived at the time, and I was praying with a practitioner after service every single Sunday. 3 months went by. I called, so excited, and the woman said, "Shannon, I'm so sorry. You weren't in this batch either." Another 3 months went by, and another 3 months, and another 3 months. 2 years went by. During those 2 years, I moved from faith and joy to fear and terror. Now, I was highly functioning. I had work that I loved. I had a family that I loved. The early morning and late nights were the hardest time. This was before Instagram. I would doom scroll in my mind. Anybody? There were rumors that the adoptions were going to stop, that it might not happen, and I believed them. This dream that my younger self knew was going to happen, I forgot. It's like amnesia set in. Fear is powerful. It's like I could have been wearing a black t-shirt with white lettering saying "fear of faith." Because every time I got my hopes up, they were dashed. And so instead of staying the course and holding to my faith, to what I knew to be true, I was taking all of the classes, doing all the things, but I was praying the problem. I worried every single day a lot. I was so sad. And one day, after 2 years, I remember I was sitting on the floor and I was folding laundry. Kids. I was folding lots of laundry. And I don't know why it was this particular moment, but a song came on the radio, and it was the remake of Somewhere Over the Rainbow by the Hawaiian ukulele player Israel Is. Rand, would you play a few seconds? This song came on as I was folding the laundry.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me.
That moment was a gift from God. I don't know if it was the line, dreams really do come true, or somewhere in my brain, I had put together that the original song was sung by Judy Garland when she was a teenager, but I remembered my knowing. I remembered my dream. It was like the dam of fear broke and hope rushed in. And I remembered in that moment that there was a destiny that was going to happen. And so for the next 2 cycles of 3 months, I stayed to my faith, and lo and behold, the day came on Halloween when we got the call and we were placed with our daughter, Liza Rose Shengxiao from the southern province of China. And 6 weeks later, we traveled there and we brought her home, and our lives were never, ever the same. She brought us and brings us so much joy and humor. Liza loves the funny. She loves music and art and animals. And so we had even more music and art and animals and joy and laughter in our home. That's how it went. And I had the privilege of my life to raise this extraordinary soul, Liza Rose. The years went by. Boy, they've flown by. And just recently, we went to Northern California to drop her off at college. At college. I have to tell you, for any of you who've ever gone through that, this was kid number 4, not my first rodeo, never easy. We were in Target getting her whatever, soap and Band-Aids, and I'm seeing her when she's 4 and 6 and 14. And as I was flying home back here to Oregon, we were just going in for the landing. The plane was just going in for the landing. And you pilots in the room, Molly, John, whoever else is a pilot in here, you will understand this. The plane was landing, and then all of a sudden, and this had never happened to me, and I've flown a lot from California to Oregon, it lifted, and it decided to do something else. And it kind of turned, and the pilot got on the speaker and said, there's this really strong tailwind, so we're going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to fly low, and we're just going to go in and land in a little bit. And I don't know what about flying low. I don't know all the mechanics of it, but the plane got quieter. Have you ever been on a plane? It's like it got quieter. And I had a window seat, and we were flying like right over the treetops. And I could see like clouds, like cotton ball clouds and above. And I just closed my eyes and I just did what I do, and I went into prayer, and I was just praying silently. So much gratitude for Liza Rose, for her journey. Praying too for her biological family in China, letting them know that she is great. And as I was praying, I was having all of these images of her, of gratitude, and I was affirming and knowing that as she moves into this next phase of her life, that there are blessings that she and I can't even yet imagine. Tears were streaming down my face. I had my mask on so I could kind of hide it a little bit. And as I opened my eyes and I looked out the window, there was the most beautiful rainbow I had ever seen. And I knew that that was Spirit saying to me, my darling, I have been here this whole time. We think we have to do it alone. We never are doing anything alone, ever. Ever. The title of my talk today is The Divine Orchestration of Your Dreams. Because here's the thing. Every dream of ours, everything of worth is co-created with the divine. The pain that we can experience around the process, like I did, so much pain, is our ego's attachment to that thing or that desire. And that's what happened to me straight up. I decided that our adoption process had to look a certain way, that I had a timeline, and I battled for my timeline every 3 months for 2 years. Never once considering that maybe, just maybe, God, Spirit, Source, had a better timeline for reasons that I was not meant to know. We think we have a plan. God's is always better. Because we were brought Liza Rose Shangxiao. Your plan, God's plan for you. So I ask you, is there an area in your own life where you can loosen your grip a little bit? Maybe consider trying to lean into God's plan and watch what happens. Anything of worth that you want to bring into your life is co-created. A relationship, a job, a creative expression, abundance. It is all of it is co-created. Not what you're going to have for breakfast, like pancakes or, eggs. That's the ego's job. There's a place for that. But anything worthy, anything of meaning, of worth, we co-create with the love of the divine. And we co-create with Spirit all the time. Even things you may not think of, like healing, for example, the beautiful song that Darcy sang. And Kate, thank you for that. Healing, or the realization of truth. Healing of any kind is co-created. You, my love, are not doing that heavy lifting all yourself. Deep communication with another human being. Not asking about the weather, but I'm talking about real and deep connecting with another person is co-creative. Spirit is in that connecting time with you, operating through you, with the other person. Sacred listening. Oh, when you sit with someone who is in pain and you are fully present with them, that moment of sacred listening, that is co-created with the divine. Spirit is with you, giving you the strength to listen deeply, to not turn away from what is difficult. God is with us in meditation, prayer, spiritual practice. Check, check, check. It is all co-creative. You are never, ever alone. Think of the places in your life where you feel like you're having to do it all yourself. What might that be for you? You're having to maybe come up with a solution or handle that thing, whatever that is. Maybe it's even just day-to-day living. Getting Thai food, doing laundry on the floor, dropping your baby off at college. You are never doing it alone. Spirit is always with you, speaking to you in every way possible. So I ask you, what dream do you have for yourself right now? This day, big or small, what dream do you have? And if you don't have a dream, my loving suggestion is that you choose one. As the bard wrote, we are such stuff as dreams are made on. We are here to dream and to co-create our dreams into reality. Again, the key is to remember that you're not doing it alone. And it very well may look quite differently than you originally planned. That's a God thing. The beloved Buddhist teacher Ram Dass said, the next message you need is always right where you are. The next message you need is always right where you are. So my invitation for you this week is to look for your rainbows, those beautiful signs from the universe, whatever those are for you in your day-to-day life, through songs or books or something someone said that you felt was just for you somehow. That is all Spirit conspiring for your good, because you are so loved. You are so loved. The second thing this week, I invite you to consciously remember that Spirit has you and has this and is right at this very moment doing creative and holy work on your behalf. You are just not meant to know the details or the timeline, darling. And finally, think about your next dream. Let it live in you so that God or Spirit can partner with you and make it so.